Steelers Panthers, what a great matchup.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a Super Bowl preview.
Hey, guys. Hey, somebody told us that we're headlining Thursday Night Football. Where are we setting up? Who are you guys? Only the greatest heavy metal band in the world, Steel Panther.
Yeah. What's up?
We don't have Steel Panther on Thursday Night Football. It's Steelers Panthers.
Oh, that makes more sense. Do you guys need a house band?
I don't think we need a house band.
Excellent. We'll go set up on stage right now. Let's get
Awesome. Let's do this, man. Thursday Night Football.
in tune.
Hey, did you guys hear Steel Panther? Hey, they're on the show. Huh? Is that cool? Huh? Hey, those guys shred. You know what I'm talking about? And get this, we go to the same hairstylist. what?
Steel Panther is one of the strangest contradictions in modern music. A band that is simultaneously a joke but also take everything completely serious. They parody the excess of the 1980s glam metal, yeah, they play better than most of the bands they are mocking. The lyrics absurd, obscene, and hilarious, but behind every punchline is a riff so good that it could have been written in the glory days of the Sunset Strip. To understand Steel Panther is to understand how parody can evolve into art and how self-awareness can become the loudest form of rebellion in rock. Welcome to the series The Genius Of, and I want to talk about one of my favorite bands of all time, Steel Panther. Steel Panther started to gain popularity on the Sunset Strip during the early 2000s, briefly under the name of Metal Shop, soon changed to Metal School. The core foundation of their lineup consisted of lead vocalist Half Saints, Michael Starr, and guitarist Russ Parrish, Satchel, that knew each other from playing on the Van Halen tribute band called Atomic Punks. They both have been important musicians, especially in the LA scene, with Rolf not only being a former singer of Atomic Punks, but also work in other few projects, being the former singer of the 80s band called Long Gone, and being briefly a member of LA Guns on the EP Wasted, released in 1998. He stayed there for only a year, to name a few projects. And he also made a cameo appearance on the movie Rockstar. Russ Parrish is a former guitar teacher in the Musicians Institute. He played guitar with Jeff Pilsons on the band War and Peace, appearing on the Time Capsule album in 1993, and also played with Rob Rawford's band called Fight, recording the extremely underrated album War of Words in 1993. He also briefly played with the band Out of the Blue. He worked extensively with Paul Gilbert and has writing credits on several Mr. Big and solo Gilbert tracks. And in the early 2000s was the leader of his own band called the Thornbirds, where he ended up working with bassist Travis Haley, Lexi Fox, and drummer Darren Leader, Styx Zaninia. Both of them had less experience comparing with Rolf and Parrish, but they are avid musicians throughout their whole lives. Darren had artwork and design work for the albums No 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 by the Illustrious GI and The Conductor by Easy Rollers. And apart from the Ducks EP, which was the first work with the band, there isn't much info about Travis before he became Lexi Fox.
Did you guys form? Who formed? Like, what's the story behind?
We formed pretty damn organically.
Yeah.
I mean, we all had been playing in bands, you know,
around
town for since we were kids.
With all four members being very active, not only in the LA music scene, but experienced musicians that have been active since the late 80s with many different projects. Even though they not have been very successful musicians, Steel Panther started almost like a last resource for them. The talent was there, but that somehow all the members never really achieved the desired success, or maybe something more stable. With most members close to the 40s, they started doing weekly shows on Monday nights at the Viper Room in LA and subsequently the Key Club. They had a residency in Vegas, and they are basically a cover band. Well, not basically. They were a cover band, and they are doing really well, actually. Playing covers of hair metal hits while sharing their passion for the bands that made the songs famous. They not only perform the songs, but embrace the looks, and they exaggerate every cliche of the glam metal era. The womanizing, the drugs, not that they did any, but they talk about it.
Everybody make some noise for cocaine! Woo! Cocaine makes you feel bitchin', and you also can stay really skinny if you do a bunch of cocaine.
And the vanity from a time that rock was absurd, flashy, but most of all, fun. They built their reputation around their live show for being a mix of half comedy routine and half arena concerts with crowd interactions, raunchy jokes, and spontaneous covers. And I mean a lot of covers, like so many covers. And you quick do a research on YouTube, and you can see that Steel Panther did and still do. They basically cover almost every single hit, not only from the 80s, but every single hit ever written in rock and roll. It's unbelievable. And all of those covers, they are unique in a way, but they are never bad cover, which is very interesting. And I guess they still have the same approach from the early days that before they got the recognition and now playing for bigger audiences. They're still one of the best cover bands ever. Shout out to Michael's impersonation of Ozzy while the band played Crazy Train. It's spot on. It's ridiculous funny. And during the residency in LA and Vegas, apart from the covers, they will always try to bring famous guests to play with them. And many of them you can see on YouTube, but there's videos of them playing with Corey Taylor, Mike Starr, Miles Kennedy, Vinnie Paul, Chad Kruger, Nudo Betancourt, Joey Fatoni, Dane Cook, Billy Ray Cyrus, Ninja Sex Party, and many others. Plus, they always would get members of the audience to play, and there are some of the clips of that in the early YouTube years that went viral. While doing their weekly shows in the early 2000s, the band started to also work on their own material for release. In 2003, still as Metal School, they released Whole Patrol, a self-produced EP with some hidden gems like Big Boobs and Cleveland Rocks from the Drew Carey Show sitcom. And some of the tracks that will be on the first album with more polished versions like Fat Girl, Hell's on Fire, and Stripper Girl. And at the same time, the band appeared on the hilarious Discover Card advertisement as Danger Kitty.
The year was 1983, and Danger Kitty released their hit single, Love Rocket. With it came instant fame and fortune. They bought mansions, cars, and the finest women's clothing. But by 1984, the fans left, the fortune was gone, and the dream was over. Desperate for money, Danger Kitty last performed at the Smuggler Bar Mitzvah.
Some people just can't live within their means. A Discover Card with spending management tools for the slightly smarter consumer.
Also in 2003, our early version of the hit song Death to Alba Metal was included in a compilation CD called Hey, That's What I Call Sludge Volume 1 that was put out by the Metal Sludge website, and they call themselves Metal Sludge All-Stars. And they also covered the song Fantasy by Aldo Nova that was used as the opening musical theme for the MTV program Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory. So, after nearly a decade of live performance, self-produced songs, interesting appearances on TV and in commercials, the band changed the name to Steel Panther in 2008, and in May of the same year, they signed a contract with Republic Records, owned by Universal Records, announcing plans for the new studio album.
Yeah.
Speaking of names, what happened to, you went through Metal Shop and then Metal School, and you just felt it wasn't working, and that whole name change is what changed everything?
In the beginning, we were involved with a couple different companies, and we had a name, and we wanted to change it because we didn't like the name, so we separated from that company, and they just kept that name. We're
so
like,
they had the copyright for it.
They own the name, and we're like, nah. And then we Metal Schooled it, And then when we got the deal with Universal, which we were not seeking out, we did not try to get a record deal. But what we were doing in L.A. every week was we were selling out the Key Club. It was Viper Room, then we moved to the Roxy, then the Key Club, then House of Blues. And Universal came, and they're like, we want to give you a record deal.
Yeah.
We're like, what? Because we were doing mostly covers.
What year was that?
2008.
Uh-huh.
And
you guys just blew up in LA real quick.
Not real quick, but when we started in LA, which was around 98, 2000, people were coming, and
was it a once a week residency?
It was once a week, every Monday night.
Every Monday night.
And it was a scene. Like,
yeah, I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, and those kinds of things you can't plan, and it happened. It was perfect. Nothing was happening on Monday nights in LA, and eventually it changed the landscape in how venues booked shows. They wouldn't book big shows on Monday nights because everybody was going to our show.
A year later, Feel the Steel was released, making the major record label debut. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard Comedy Chart, number 123 on the Billboard 200 chart, and eventually would peak at number 98. With a more well-produced and polished song comparing with the EP, obviously, they had hit singles like Community Property and Death to Albumetto, and they were also the first official video clips. Death to Albumetto had Corey Taylor featuring as a guest vocalist, and also on the album you have Justin Hawkins from The Darkness featuring at the Party All Day song. Turn Out the Lights had M Shadows, and the track Eyes of a Panther, which became maybe the most successful song of the band, it's featured on the soundtrack for the video game Skate 3. And thank you EA, because that was the first time I ever listened to Steel Panther. And later on, the record ended up being gold on the UK, and Feel the Steel was sort of like the start of what it felt like a couple years ago, an impossible career. Steel Panther embraced the persona of rock star and the absurd lyrics, blended with some of the best riffs, melodies, and songs of the whole genre, and create something truly unique and special. Feel the Steel also marked an important turn for the band that had to make choices about either continue to be a cover band with steady income playing weekly shows at clubs, or aim for something bigger as a global band, having to take risks and a couple steps down.
It's crazy, like thinking about the transition from being a cover band to being an all original band was a long fucking journey.
It was a super long journey. A lot of people don't realize, and I read comments occasionally, like, there's always people that are like, want you to fail, right? So there's those people, and sometimes those people say like, oh, they're finally done now, this record sucks. Like, and I always feel like saying, oh yeah, we'll just go back to being a cover band. Because we were actually a really good cover band.
One of the best.
We were really good.
One of the best.
We were really good.
Like, our day job before we put records out, and a lot of people around the world don't know this, we were doing so well as a cover band that we had like dozens of cover bands trying to do what we were doing. We did covers for so many years, and we were so good at it, and it was a blast because all that stuff is stuff that we literally grew up, listening to. Yeah. And it really is the foundation of who we are as musicians. So making that transition to an original band, it wasn't the hardest thing was actually being successful as a cover band already, because then
and taking a pay cut to be an original band.
Yeah, then whenever you play an original song, you got 1,000 people at your cover gig, and they're like, what's it called? Asian Hooker? I don't know. But the good thing is, I think we were able to when we first started doing original stuff, we actually sold it from the stage at first, and people bought it immediately because they wanted to hear what it was like.
Yeah, the actual CD from the stage.
Sold CDs, and then I think the great thing is like everybody came to the shows after listening to it in their car for fucking.
And we knew it.
A week, and they were like, "Fuck, I want to hear that song, Asian Hooker or Fat Girl."
The crazy part was that, I think all of us separately, before we even knew each other, we were all in bands growing up, all in bands. And the whole goal back in the day was to get a record deal, get a record deal, get a record. And, you'd be in bands, you'd submit stuff to a record label, to an attorney, and try and get all the, that was the golden ring, right?
Yeah.
And then we started doing covers, and then Universal Records, Monty Lipman and Avery, come knocking on our door, and because they heard that there was a scene going on in LA, and we're like, okay, all right, that's cool, but we had no desire to get a record deal because we were doing just fine, more than fine. But They came. They saw what was happening. They offered us I think a 4-album deal. Thank you. A 4-album record deal, and we had to think about it, and we ended up doing 2 records for them, and it was a great experience.
Yo, if you're staying tuned now, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, support this channel. I appreciate everyone's support. Let's go back to the video. 2 years later, the second album, Balls Out, was officially released in October of 2011. Balls Out was an important album for the band, and some people say it was the best. It was the album to show that they could not only be incredible performers, but also create great music while keeping the joke alive. With a semi-ballad single, If You Really Really Love Me, and 17 Girls in a Row, Balls Out has some of the most clever and funny lyrics, and Steel Panther best riffs and songs. Just like Tiger Woods' satires, Tiger Woods' sex scandal, Gold Digging Whore satires, title speaks for itself. There's also some guest appearances with the opening track In the Future featuring Dane Cook, and the song It Won't Suck Itself featured Chad Kroeger and a solo by Nuno Bintacourt. It is one of those albums that is a banger after banger with, Supersonic Sex Machine, I Like Drugs, Tomorrow Night, and many others. And one of my favorite review of the album and the band ever, one of the best things that be ever written about the band came from the Canadian website Rockstar Weekly. They gave the album a perfect 5 stars, saying, "For those lucky enough to understand the joke, Balls Out is a standout album of the year. It just plain kicks ass." And that's has always been my point with this band. I maybe can understand the ones that get offended or don't get it, but man, it's for those who understand the joke, we are so lucky. I guess if you're here, you're a lucky one that understands the joke and understands the band. A year after, the first live DVD, British Invasion, was filmed in the Brixton Academy in London and features a 2-hour concert documentary based on the band's sold-out British tour. And man, I watched that DVD like 100 times or more. It's pure gold. I know, those DVDs that even what they say in between the songs or the things that they say during the songs that are not on the album. That was the first time I see the hair solo.
On the hair solo tonight, put your hands together for Lexi.
In 2014, they released All You Can Eat. It was the 3rd album. They are now an independent label called Open E Music. The artwork was a parody of the painting of The Last Supper by Da Vinci, and the album has singles and honestly the most absurd music videos, like Party Like Tomorrow Is the End of the World, and the hilarious and clever The Burden of Being Wonderful. And this album has also one of the most disgusting lyrics and videos with Glory Hole. It's still on the Steel Panther's channel on YouTube, and I honestly have no idea how they managed to put that on YouTube and not taking down. To be fair, analyzing after a couple of years, I think All You Can Eat was the album that Steel Panther sought to see how far they could push the limits of the band and the satire. Musically, it might be the tightest record. Satchel's guitar tone could go hand to hand to albums like Out of the Cellar or Dr. Feelgood, and the vocal harmonies are incredible. A perfect mix of well-crafted, absurd songs. That was the album that reached the highest USA chart on the 24th position. In 2016, they released an acoustic album called Live from Lexi's Mom Garage, with Bobby Brown portraying Lexi's mom. And it was safe to say that at this point, Steel Panther had become an established band and somehow recognizable for a genre that very rarely gives space for newer bands. They had opened for Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, had an Australian tour sponsored by Brazzers, sold out European tours, had a first American headliner tour, played Wacken, Download Fest, Hellfest, playing in South America. They were truly making it.
So did you guys ever envision when y'all started this that you'd be sharing the stage with Winger and Def Leppard and Judas Priest?
Well, the first time that we all jammed together, that's honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen in our career, but there was a fucking chemistry and I could feel it. I was like, oh shit, there's something that I've never had performing live before. It was a fucking very strange, unique feeling, and I just knew in my nuts and my guts that there was something.
Yeah.
With this group of 4 guys.
Is this back when it was Metal School?
Yeah, this is
No, Metal Shop.
Metal Shop.
Shop.
Yeah, well, it was Viper, then it was Roxy, then Key Club, then I think back to the Roxy, then Key Club, House of Blues, Key Club, House of Blues. For real.
Being also very engaged in social media and YouTube. Around the same time, they started a series called Steel Panther TV with segments like Science Panther, Love on the Rocks, Cine Minute, World of Music, and Demolicious. They're honestly like engaged, funny moments as a band portraying themselves, proving that they're more than amazing and talented musicians. They are great actors, and most important of all, entertainers.
How does time travel work, Lexi? Do you know how time travel works?
Well, yes, I do. Because I know for a fact, because when we went to Australia, we left Los Angeles Airport, and we went in a jet, a very big jet, and we went over to Australia, and it was a completely different day. So it works with jets.
Lower the Bar is the 4th studio album released in 2017. Still a great solid album with great clever and absurd tracks like Going to the Back Door, Poo-Tang Boomerang, Pussy and Free, and a cover of She's Tight with Robbie Zander and Bobby Brown, making cameo appearances on the music video. And at that time, I felt, apart from the few good songs, that the formula and the band was starting to get a bit old and worn out. But that was around that time that I got to see them most live. They had a tour named Sunset Strip Live that they would mix like cover songs with their songs, bringing something similar with what they used to do when they had their residency in California. In 2019, they released Heavy Metal Rules, and I think Heavy Metal Rules is by far the weakest album of the band. It maybe felt too repetitive or less inspired, even with good moments like All I Wanna Do Is Fuck Myself Tonight. It was also the band's last album to feature bassist Lexi Fox. The real reason why Travis left the band is unknown, but one of the reasons why Lexi Fox left the band was to go to sex rehab. And it makes sense being the most bitchy member of the band. Another reason why the band wrote on social media was the mutual decision, jokingly stating that Lexi was pursuing his own business. Sexy Lexi's prettiest pet. And with that, it's so hard to find anything related with the real members of the band apart from them acting like the characters of Steel Panther. They recently put up a couple interviews with the members in costume, but seriously talking about Feel the Steel to celebrate the 50th anniversary on YouTube. But apart from that, it's really hard to know Rolf, Russ, Darren, and now the new bassist, but Travis, which I guess is good. That keeps the aura and the characters, but I don't know. I would like to see an interview with Russ talking about his life before Steel Panther. But anyways, after all the COVID BS, changes of bases, the self-produced album On the Prowl was released in 2023. And I went into this album thinking this is when Steel Panther has run their course, but I've been pleasantly surprised. The album is a great comeback with the new bassist Spider. Songs like 1987 is a nostalgic anthem that perfectly encapsulates their entire career. And it's one of the most serious Panther songs ever. But songs like Never Too Late, To Get Some Pussy Tonight, Magical Vagina, and My Dick's Enough keep the course of ridiculous song titles and themes, not losing what the band's core is. Thankfully, On the Prowl is them acknowledging their legacy both as comedians and keepers of the gender that refuses to die, man. I recently went to the concert after many years, and it's safe to say that they did not lose the magic. And after 15 years since the first album and beyond 25 years of their career, their shows still kick ass and they're still as funny as ever.
Let me hear you scream!
On the season 18 premiere of the Americans Got Talent in 2023, Steel Panther walked unexpectedly on the stage to play a sensory version of Eyes of a Panther. All the judges pressed yes, and that advanced Steel Panther to the next round. They ended up playing a sensory version of Death to Album Metal, but despite performing strongly and securing judge support, they did not receive enough public votes to advance to the finals of the competition. They officially exited the show in August 30 of 2023, and in a social media post, they marked, "Huge thanks to all the fans who vote for us. It wasn't the cards this time, but like a bad case of herpes, you cannot get rid of us that easily. Though they didn't win, their participation generated significant media attention and introduced them to a broader audience. It was something very unexpected, but also an incredible smart move from the band. Like, for example, a couple of my friends watched on TV and they mentioned to me like it was a new band or something, and it was kind of funny. My reply was like, yeah, I know Dan, I've been to almost like 15 shows already. But some of them end up going to the concert I mentioned before, and I guess the move from the band worked.
Fast forward, I see you guys on AGT.
Yes.
What is
what's the deal with that?
That was fucking weird. So they called us about a year and a half ago.
Right.
They said, come on the show. We went, you know what we do.
Right.
It's network. They said, we want to bring some fire to the show, and we think you guys would be great. We actually really had to talk about it, whether or not we wanted to go on that show, because, it's not very rock and roll, the show.
Right.
It's very middle of the road, mainstream America. And, we had a conversation. We're like, you know what? Let's fucking do it, because at the end of the day, we didn't know what we were walking into with Simon. We didn't know if he was going to fucking rip us,
right?
Which he very well could. But we're like, at the very least, more people hear our name, they see us. And if somebody gets interested and wants to Google it, maybe come to a show and have a fun time, that's cool.
I don't know if this is on the version that is up on the screen here, but he did ask us. He goes, why did you want to do AGT? Aren't you afraid of what all your peers will say?
Yeah.
And we're like, fuck, how do you answer that? I was like, Sticks.
We did
Missed a point.
We had those conversations with friends of ours in bands. They're like, dude, are you sure it's
career killer?
And we're like, we have always we're paving our road as we're going down it. We're like, with the hot mop, we're just going, fuck, we're doing it. We don't fit in the boxes that a lot of bands fit in.
You're untouchable anyway.
When they called us, I thought, not that we're well established, that's not what I thought. What I thought was, we're already like have records out. Why are they asking us to do it? And they're like, because you're talent.
Right.
And we want you to compete. And then once they told us we could win $1 million, we're like, that's all you had to say, man. We'll be right down.
Steel Panther are often dismissed by casual listeners as a crude joke. A glam metal parody band that sings about sex, drugs, and absurd rock star cliches. But that's precisely what makes them genius. Beneath the wild wigs and filthy humor lies a band of phenomenal musicians who have mastered the sound, style, and spirit of the 80s metal better than almost anyone else. The brilliance lies in balance. Steel Panther doesn't just mock the glam era, but they recreate it in incredible details and admiration. The great vocals, killer riffs and guitar solos, layer harmonies and bombastic production are all executed with a very tight precision. Satchel's guitar work is a masterclass of 80s shred technique, and Michael Starr's voice channels the greatest singers of that time, and even often sometimes surpassing them. What many people miss is that Steel Panther's humor isn't empty shock value. It's a meta commentary. Their exaggerated lyrics about fame, excess, and lust highlight how ridiculous yet magnetic their rockstar fantasy really was and still is. They hold up a mirror to our era of overindulgence while celebrating how fun it was. It's satire, nostalgic, and celebration all at once. It's a blend that takes both intelligence and genuine affection for the music they play. The true genius of Steel Panther is that the joke works on two levels. If you just wanted to laugh, you can, but if you listen, you realize that beneath the parody is a band so skilled and authentic that they became a legit part of the genre. If you ever been to a Steel Panther show, you already know it's unlike anything else. They flawlessly perform the songs, the crowd becomes part of the joke, the comedy routine from Michael and Satchel is great and never feels scripted. The hair solo, the Ozzy impersonation, the Ricky Allen impersonation.
Of one of the greatest English drummers of all time, Rick Allen. This is going to blow your mind. That's right, Rick Allen from Def Leppard. Watch this.
Everything. For people like me that did not live the 80s, I guess is the closest we can ever be to a true 80s Sunset Strip rock and roll show, maybe without the drugs and the joke. And that's why for me, Steel Panther is one of the best things that ever happened to the hard rock scene in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, if out of anybody that I've talked to, you understand exactly what we do. We do take the piss out of everybody, but we do that to one another, and that's just who we are. But there's also a space in there for me, and all the guys feel this way. It's, you have to have some sort of realness in there. If we were just four actors who got together and cut jokes and sang dirty songs and couldn't play our instruments, I don't think people would enjoy it as much. But we do take pride in being good at our individual instruments and performing them well. So there's an honesty in that. And then the other comedy and the fun and the fucking ball busting and making fun of people. People are like, all right, that's Steel Panther. Yes, And I think that basically what we're doing is we're taking the veil off of all the innuendos and just fucking talking about what everybody thinks anyways. Just open, honest, full throttle, fucking lyrical craziness. I mean, some of it's really over the top. But as far as like the onstage banner in between songs, yes, we crack jokes. And that's what we want. We want you to fucking laugh, escape reality, have a good time, and just enjoy yourself. Because at the end of the day, that's what to me, that's what a rock show does for me when I go see a band play, especially if they're making you laugh.
Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about Steel Panther, if you agree with everything I said, if you have anything else to add, if I forgot any details or anything to talk about the band. I'm generally a fan of the band for all the things I put out, but mostly for the guys. They're such great musicians and they take that stuff so seriously in a sense of the joke, and being in concerts, seeing them live, it's one of the best times ever. So yeah, let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.